This is Michael Popok, Legal AF. Just as we were on the air for Legal AF, the leading podcast for law and politics, we got breaking news that Judge Chutkan, the D.C. Circuit Court federal judge presiding over Donald Trump's election interference case, has denied Donald Trump's effort to remove her from the case, disqualify her, recuse her, finding in a 20-page opinion that none of the grounds appropriate to remove a judge to show that she's biased, to show that she's not fair and impartial, have been proven or shown by Donald Trump. Let's be frank, Donald Trump just doesn't like the judge because she's a democratically appointed judge by Obama with a long-standing history of being law and order. And that's the last thing Donald Trump wants, where he wants delay. He hasn't liked her since before she set a trial of March of 2024, well before the election, for this mega trial, this election fraud trial in front of her. On the most recent episode of Legal AF, Karen Friedman, Agnifilo, and I got into it. It just had happened as we hit the air. So listen to us analyze in real time, as it happens, the opinion that just came off the printer while we were doing the episode. Here you go. So let's turn to the disqualification motion. You and I have had a chance to spend a minute basically looking through it. But, you know, I tell people like my clients that minute is, 32 years in the making, because that's how long I've been practicing and training to answer that question. And so it's a minute, but it's a good quality minute by you and me. What did you pick up from? And then I'll give you my favorite quotes. For yes. Me, I'll just pick the Watergate analogy. I think really sums it up best, but I'll do it in my end.
Okay. So, to me, what I liked about this is she said, look, yes, you point out that so look back up. Trump said, I want you to be recused because in two other cases you made statements, Judge Chutkan, that show that you have a predetermined animus against me. In two other sentencings, when you sentenced other Jan 6 defendants, you made comments about, well, the guy who incited this, he's not being held accountable, et cetera. And therefore, you have shown that you are anti-Trump. But what she did a really good job at showing was, look, in any sentencing, in any federal case, the judge, the defense puts on mitigation evidence, and what happens is the judge listened to the mitigation evidence, and what the mitigation evidence was both defendants said, look, I'm not the one who incited this. I was doing this on at the behest of somebody who's not being prosecuted for this, meaning Trump. And she agreed with that, or at least acknowledged that. And so she said, look, this was an appropriate response to something I'm required to do, which is considering mitigation in a case. So that's number one. You're taking my statements out of context. These were intrajudicial statements, is what she called them, and said, and they were a response to what was being said in other cases. And then she went through the law and showed, what the law is that would require recusal. And, she sums it up in the end and says, but basically, this court from the beginning repeated its commitment to ensure orderly administration of justice in this and any other case. That commitment echoes the court's solemn oath to administer justice without respect to persons, to do equal right to the poor and to the rich, and to faithfully and impartially discharge and perform all duties under the Constitution and laws of the United States. Based on a review of the law and the facts and record, the court concludes the reasonable observer would not doubt its ability to uphold that promise in this case. And I just thought that was a beautiful paragraph. And that's why she denied the motion, because she can be fair. And anyone looking at what she does and says will see that she will be fair.
Yeah. So I loved her breakdown of it. She basically took them right at their frontal attacks on her. Two different Jan 6 defendants who blamed Donald Trump at some point to try to get leniency in their sentencing. And she went through a description of both of their heinous acts against the seat of our democracy and the arguments that were being raised by her lawyers and the comments that she made in full, not just the clipped version of them that were in Donald Trump's papers, to explain why, first setting out the facts, then the legal standard that she needed to set out. And for me, when she got into Watergate, which I've always said is, of course, is the analogy. She said legal precedent also counsels against her being disqualified in the case you're accusing. The DC Circuit's en banc decision, meaning all the judges of the DC Circuit, in United States versus Haldeman, which is the famous case involving the attorney general that went to jail that used to work for Nixon, she says is particularly instructive. In that case, the circuit reviewed a recusal motion against District Judge Sirica. Judge Sirica, for those who don't know, was the judge who presided over a lot of the Watergate trials and convictions, and is sort of a lion of the legal world. And they try to get rid of him, some of the later defendants who were being prosecuted for their participation in the Watergate conspiracy. Judge Chutkan goes on page 15 to say the motion relied in relevant part on statements made by Judge Sirica in prior cases involving other Watergate defendants, almost exactly on all fours, as we like to say, as Donald Trump is arguing here. In particular, the judge says Judge Sirica had, during those earlier proceedings, expressed a belief that criminal liability extended beyond the 7 persons there charged. Boy, is this eerily similar to the case in front of her. And even suggested persons whom the prosecutors might consider calling before the grand jury investigating Watergate. That was Judge Sirica. The circuit court affirmed Judge Sirica's decision not to back out of the case, holding that his statements did not reflect a disqualifying state of mind, and observing that, quote, no disabling prejudice can be extracted from dignified, though persistent, judicial efforts to bring everyone responsible for Watergate to book. And she's basically painting herself properly as the heir to Judge Sirica in the Watergate case that says, just because I presided over other Jan 6th insurrectionists and defendants and formed all my opinions in court, intra-court, not outside the court, by watching television, which is what they accused her of. I know what I saw, and I know what video I've watched. I'm allowed to take that with me in my mind, in my brain, into the next set of sentencing, as long as I don't sort of use that to show favoritism to one side or the other, because I prejudged the case. And since there's no examples or evidence of that, your motion is denied. She's going to get upheld if they try to appeal it. They're not getting out from under Chutkan, and Chutkan is going to have to make that decision on that gag order and whether to speed up trial or not. I'm sure it's going to come up. She's not going to be happy, and we'll be reporting on her hearing when it happens.
One of the things she said that I really liked in there was how basically, the recusal motions can be used as like a sword, to go out and judge shop. And, that you can't just do that because you don't like your judge. So, and she points that out, right? That you can't, just because you don't like your judge, you can't use it to go try to get a new one. So I think it's important that she very much went through, pointed out what the law is, and showed how she doesn't even meet that standard in the law.
That's what we do on Legal AF. We catch these news stories when we see them. We look at them, we examine them, and we report on them and analyze them with the over 75 years of experience that collectively the 3 leaders of Legal AF, Ben Meisalas, Karen Friedman, Agnifilo, and me, Michael Popok, bring to it. So that analysis is 75 years in the making, if you will. And we do it just like that. If you enjoyed that clip, join us every Wednesday and Saturday, one place, the MeidasTouch Network for Legal AF. You can watch it on YouTube like you're doing now. You can pick it up on audio wherever you get your audio podcast, and help the MeidasTouch Network get to 2 million free subscribers. The bigger they are, the more you're going to be, your voice is going to be heard. Until my next hot take and my next Legal AF, this is Michael Popok reporting.
Hey Meidas Mighty, love this report? Continue the conversation by following us on Instagram @MeidasTouch to keep up with the most important news of the day. What are you waiting for? Follow us now.